guys, I'm back today with another card. I am working on making some cards for boys' birthdays. I have a 9 and a 13-year-old, and they are always requesting cards that are not too much like a little kid and are masculine. So they definitely don't like shiny things on them unless it's in a shaker card. So we're going to create a background. We're going to only die cut today, and we're going to create two cards out of that fairly quickly. So to get started, I cut out all of these stripes from some spare pieces of cardstock. I'm only going to use my blues and greens today, but I cut out two different sizes using Pinkfresh Studios Slimline stripes. The nice thing about the slimline stripes is I'm using these on a regular size card, but you can tell that how much I have hanging over the side, I can easily cut off and use that for the next card. So that makes these really nice and saves you a little bit of time because you're getting two for one. Of course, you could also use them on a slimline, but I decided today that I would do regular 4.25 by 5.5 cards, so the A2 size. I do use my MISTI. I put a sticky mat in from Sizzix to hold on to my card, and then I lined up one of the MISTI corners there, and I'm putting my cardstock strips right up against this. I used Gina Connect glue because to me, this glue, of all of my glues, I can put it down and I can manipulate the paper a little bit. When I'm doing stripes, I try to really set up that first stripe correctly, make it level, and these grids make that easy. But I also try to scoot them as close together as possible. Being on a white piece of cardstock, if you don't get them right flush against each other, you're going to see little white pieces below that. You could also make this a little easier and just do a colored piece of cardstock below it. I just like this paper. It's a very good weight of paper and it holds the glue well, so I went with white today. Although if I tried it again, I would definitely try a colored one and maybe not be so um, meticulous about getting those stripes to stick together. I will also point out that I'm doing dots of glue. I should have done stripes of glue. I was trying to be careful not to get the glue on the other side of the paper. And by doing dots of glue, you can see I got some glue right there. It it doesn't hold down every single piece, and I'm about to cut this with a die cutter, and when I do that, it's going to break off some of these little pieces. So I ended up putting in the video how I glued those back together. They do, at least it's like a little puzzle, but I could have saved myself time doing that. I also could have probably used some type of sticky strip behind these or cut the paper out of like a piece of adhesive, double-sided adhesive, but I know that I can't maneuver that on the paper as well. So I usually am partial to using glue. You're going to see me lift up that corner from the MISTI that I was using, and I needed to do that so I could finish out these. A bigger MISTI would solve that problem, but I don't have one. So I will lift it up, show you the extra, and then here's what it looks like and what we're going to use to die cut it. I'm sure all of you know how to die cut, but just in case you are new to the Gemini and need to know the sandwich, I wanted to show you. I also wanted to show you that when you've got something with a pattern like this, it's so obvious as to what is level. Be very careful lining up your die cut and use some tape. I tend to use Post-it note tape or scrapbook.com's sticky tape, and I have used the wrong kind before, and the pressure of the die cut machine will definitely take off some of your paper, even if you don't think your tape is that sticky. So be real careful on which tape you pick. I'm speeding this part up because putting things through the die cut machine can be a little slow. The first time I put it through, it does not cut all the way through, and that's with its regular sandwich. So I added the magnetic shim and sent it through. And I did get cuts, as you can tell, as some of the pieces are starting to come off on this side. I sped this up a lot too because this is time consuming putting the puzzle back together. But I did put the puzzle pack first just so I can line up all my pieces, and then I used a sharp instrument just to kind of carefully poke these out. Occasionally when I was getting the letters poked out, they would have another little piece that came off, but you could kind of control that. I feel like when you've got this many pieces out, you need to go ahead and get those stuck down before you're going to move on, or you're going to lose a piece, and that is extremely frustrating and hard to recreate that piece without making a whole nother background. So next I'm going to go ahead and put some pieces back on this. You will also see that I've added to the back of the cutout some really thick plastic that came from some packaging. So I just cut that out. I really like using that more than acetate because it's so sturdy. The downside to using packaging is that it often gets little marks on it or it's a little dirty. So I use a microfiber towel and some water to rinse it off and just get everything I can off of it. I usually have to do that again after I've done gluing because sometimes you'll get a little speck of glue and it makes it cloudy by your letters. When you're lining these up, you want to make sure, remember, this is stripes, so you really do have to pay attention to where your pieces go, like in this big V. I cut out my background piece just so I could see through and make sure I was lining up everything, and now we're going to start making our shaker card. I struggled for a while trying to figure out what the best foam tape was to use on shaker cards, and I feel like most of them would do fine for this rectangle, but it really is nice to use strips that are pre-cut, especially if you're going to do some type of shape because you can mold it around that shape. And this one I could have done, it would have fit to do some of these foam strips in between all the words, make them different shaker colors, but I knew for the boys, they wanted it to be simple if it was going to have any type of glitter or anything related. You'll see me use my anti-static tool along the edges and the front part of this card too. And I always like to put a few little pieces of the glitter down on the background just so it doesn't all float to the bottom. The easiest way that I found to put the sequins and everything in here is to put a big pile in the middle of where your shaker card is and then place it over top. I've tried putting the sequins in the clear part of the card, especially when you have a small area, and then lining the solid piece up over it, but it just does not work as well as being able to see through that clear part and get things lined up like you need to. I do one more round of anti-static all over the front and along the sides just to keep the glitter from sticking to it, and then I get ready to place it down. So looking under, I had a big pile here, so I just spread it out and then just lining up as carefully as possible on your background. And check it out, our first card is done. Nice. It's got some glitter effect to it, but nothing on the front. According to my kids, that makes a big difference. And so now I'm going to show you how I did the next card, even quicker. I used Altenew's new embossing folders that are 3D. I love these things. This one's called the Angled Mosaic. It just gives your paper so much depth and looks great. It's so fast, easy to do. So I'm going to add some white heavy duty cardstock to the back of my letters just to give them a little bit more strength and make them stand out just a little bit better. When I cut that out, I kept the piece that I cut the white letters out of, and I used that laying it on top of my other sheet of paper to push my letters through to line them up. That is a little tricky because you don't want to get your letters stuck to the white piece, but it's great because it has the spacing correct and you can line it up, make sure it's level, and then just put your letters in those holes knowing that you've lined everything up correctly versus using a ruler. The last thing I did to this card was add some white details with a pen, and I was finished. If you liked this video, it would really help me if you would subscribe. And if you want any products, the links are below. Those also help me out if you will click through them. Thank you.